Senator Pat Fahey, Congressman Paul Tonko, and please stand and welcome the 57th Governor of the great state of New York, Governor Kathy Hochul.
Please sit down and good morning on this almost spring day. We're getting there. We're getting there. I can feel it as I take my walks and don't have to put as many layers on in first thing in the morning. You know, as we come here, we think about springtime. You also think about renewal. You think about hope. When I think about hope, I think about housing. I think about the people I just met in the next building who had their lives just so enriched by having the dignity of a safe, beautiful home over their heads at an affordable price. And it's not just about the bricks we build with, but it's also the promise of a better life. It's not about the steel that goes into it. It's about the stability that that home offers as well. And that's what this place, Station 25, represents to the families and even the little 2-year-old named Ivy I just met and gave a little duck to for Easter. You know, this place embodies the transformation that I'm fighting for all over the state. We lost our ambition a long time ago. This state stopped building. Many, many reasons, lots of excuses. Too much political capital had to be spent in order to get anything done, and people didn't make the effort. Until I took office and I saw what had happened to our state. When you think about affordability, the #1 expense for a family is always their housing. Whether they can pay rent or even have the dream of possibly scraping enough money for that down payment of their own home. You also think about this old fire station. This was a fire station. Rundown buildings that can be brought back to life if we put the resources in and have the vision. This has energy efficient appliances, playgrounds. I just saw a playground when I can picture Ivy having a good time there with other 2-year-olds. And we're going to continue jumpstarting more than 24 affordable housing projects, the same way we did with this one. So today I'm announcing $270 million to go toward 28 affordable housing projects spanning every region of the state, from Buffalo to Long Island. And this comes from a mix of state and federal low-income housing tax credits. Rents here start under $500. $500 they start and go up to about $1,300. There was a time when that didn't sound affordable. Today it does. And when you add it up, these 28 projects will equate to 1,800 new homes. Thousands and thousands of New Yorkers will have the joy of having their own place, that magical move-in day when everything seems possible. I've done it a lot. You know, a future where your life isn't so dependent on a landlord who could toss you out, or whether you're going to worry a little bit less about your bills because you can afford your home. I saw the transformation from the homeless people live in. My grandparents had a 2-bedroom house with 8 children. The 6 boys lived in the attic. It wasn't heated, wasn't cooled, and it was like a dormitory. And I saw my dad's room. Then my parents lived in a trailer park. They were so happy to have their little place. My brother was born there. I think there's stories of him sleeping in a drawer, but I'm not sure if that's true or not. But it was tiny. I've been back to that neighborhood. It was tiny. Then I came along, Irish family, a year later. They got a little apartment above a flat that was just in the shadow of the steel plant where Dad worked. But as time progressed, my family's opportunities progressed. And you could see their success in that little Cape Cod house, and then the home with 4 bedrooms with their 6 kids and packing us into rooms. We were always sharing with other students. We had exchange students all the time. We had children from the city come live with us. We had children with disabilities come live. My parents, despite we were tight, they always had room for more. I knew what a family meant, but I also knew what a house meant, to house all of them and the people they invited in. So to me, this is personal. It's a personal quest to make sure that everybody has the same opportunities that I had growing up and others deserve. We also have an opportunity with this Congress. Now, some have given up. I won't. As Paul and I served together back when I first got elected, and we'd sit together as two upstaters, sharing a lot of values, a lot of stories about what it was like to serve in then a Republican-dominated House of Representatives. So we know how to fight. But if Congress would pass bipartisan legislation, emphasis on bipartisan legislation, and expand the federal low-income housing tax credit, that would pave the way for over 2 million new homes across this nation and more than 100,000 right here in New York. I could use 100,000 more homes here in the state of New York. This is something we want to make sure we all champion, and I'm really excited about that effort as well. So we're going to keep doing it here in New York, not asking Congress to do anything we're not willing to do here. I propose doubling our investment from $15 million to $30 million. So I'll walk the walk, talk the talk, and we'll get it done. But wouldn't it be better if I could leverage that investment with so much more if the federal government, in a bipartisan way, would understand that this is a need across the nation, rural areas, suburban areas, urban areas. And this continues to be a top priority of my administration. You know, some of you who followed my career know that I, a few years ago, started out talking about housing when nobody else was. And we got some progress my first year. I didn't get everything I wanted until last year. And yes, the budget was a little bit late, but I was not leaving town until I had a meaningful housing package, literally transforming every part of the state. And I wanted to lift barriers to new construction that have been plaguing the state for decades. You know, and a lot of play it safers and those keyboard warriors, you know, saying it'll never be done, never be done. We got it done. We fought hard, and we had the most significant housing deal ever passed in Albany in about 50 years. And also, in order to invite more municipalities to see the possibilities, we started the Pro-Housing Community Initiative. And what I did was bundle together all the discretionary money we had that could help communities and Main Street programs and the downtown revitalization programs, bundled it all together in about $650 million. I'm sweetening it with another $100 million this year and saying, if you're a pro-housing community, if you're willing to do what it takes to make sure the zoning laws are changed and you look at your land and within your jurisdiction and see the possibilities and work with developers and create more housing, then you have access to that money. Now, at first, it was 20 little communities. There's a lot of money to divvy up for 20 communities, and I think people quickly saw, like, hey, we better sign up. I'm really proud that 300 communities across the state of New York have now joined our pro-housing. And we have tens of thousands of units in the pipeline. This is what is so exciting. I'm always asking my team, Tanya's here. Did I say, give me the numbers, give me the numbers. My housing team is doing an incredible job. First of all, with the extension of 421A in New York City, up to 71,000 more units. The support we just gave the mayor of New York with the city of Yes, 80,000 units for zoning changes, 15,000 through repurposing state sites. But also, I announced an ambitious plan to have a $25 billion toward 100,000 units in my first year in office, and we are proud to say more than halfway there to meeting our goal, so we're going to be ahead of schedule. We have 55,000 there as well. And so there's other ways. I think we've added, is it 350,000? Is that right? 350,000 units have been unlocked through all these various programs since I become governor, and I'm going to make sure it gets done because that's transformational for families, and I want to make sure that we don't leave anyone on the sidelines because it means everything. A home, your own home, means everything. Just look in the eyes of the residents here who are so grateful to have this opportunity. And there's a lot of demand for this. There's about 1,400 applications Conifer had. Is that right? Who's from Conifer? 1,400 applications for 50 units. We definitely need more. And that's heartbreaking when you think about it because 1,350 people were disappointed. So we have to keep building. We cannot lose that ambition, and I will make sure we have the resources. I want the federal government to help us tremendously, and I want to thank everyone who's participating here today. Congressman Paul Tonko, I'll introduce in a second, but also brand new senator who's learning the ropes, Pat Fahey, so I'm so proud to work with her. And anything with housing, she says, I want to be there because she is a real housing champion as well. And representing the Affordable Housing Association, which has been a real dynamo force to make sure that we can focus our energies on the right projects. Brent Garwood has joined us as well, so you'll be hearing from him. But Paul Tonko, you are a great, great champion for this region, a dear friend of mine, and I'm so proud that you could join us today and give a little reprieve coming out of Washington. So enjoy your I won't say get out of jail pass. I won't say that. Ladies and gentlemen, Paul Tonko.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Governor, for that kind introduction. And it does feel good to be home and out of the all kinds of tug of war that's going on currently in Washington, but fights that are worth fighting. And so many people, millions in our country, are struggling to find affordable, quality housing. And Governor, I want to thank you for planting the seeds here in New York for response to a housing crisis. You show great leadership, you show great passion for this issue, and it's great to be here to announce with you the $270 million in LIHTC, the low-income housing tax credit investment that is being made in New York. And so we do want to match that fervor and continue to advance policies that provide for the housing initiatives. And thank you, Senator Fahey, also for your support and making certain that we keep this front and center as a prime priority. But in the United States, I firmly believe no one should have to make that tough struggle between a rent payment, a mortgage payment, their groceries, and a utility bill. It's a dream. It's the American dream to own a home, to have a safe, stable abode. And that abode is where the magic happens, is it not? It's where families cluster, where friends come and visit, where memories are written. And those memories sustain and define us. They nourish us. And they last a lifetime. Sure. And so, you know, the assembling of programs that can respond to that kind of activity in people's lives provides more than just stability for the household. It's where great stories are written. Home is where the heart is, as we all know. And so efforts like this are, in the governor's words, truly transformational. And thank you for that. But if we want to solve our historic housing shortage, we must invest in affordable housing programs. And it's why I'm a strong supporter of the LIHTC program. It is one that has really advanced a lot of opportunity as we tackle this whole issue of housing crisis. And it's one of the most important federal tools we have. And so we have to maintain that effort. There's a drive now to get rid of so many programs, and we have to defend these programs. But every dollar of federal tax credit leverages a lot of private sector investment. And so it's a good way to really grow the regional economy. It doesn't just benefit those moving into those homes. Little Ivy is all excited. That's so obvious. And she does love the duck. So, but it's more than just the joy and satisfaction that beholds them. It's also providing for jobs, sound-paying jobs, increasing public safety, and contributing to thriving communities, communities that begin to inspire one another on this housing shortage and to make some efforts to address that shortage. And without the stress of unstable housing, people can then focus on other ideals that are important to them: career advancement, investment in their children's future and their education, or to just be more engaged in the community that they call home. So children in stable, affordable homes perform better in school, and they certainly have better health outcomes. So this has got its multiple benefits that keep rippling into the quality of life of the individuals and families that we're affecting. And they're not forced to avoid other essentials like medications and health care and food costs that are still being far too expensive. So it enables them to have that freedom. And they're also not preoccupied with how they can afford that rent, and so can then move into pursuing career advancement opportunities. So there's just across-the-board good that happens, and they can save money and work towards a more financial secure future. So investing in LIHTC and programs like it is not just about building homes, it's about building a stronger, more equitable country. And in a time when so many essential programs are on the table to be cut, I will do my best to make certain that we go forward and advance even more investment in housing rather than cut deeply into these programs. We have to understand what the basic effect is when we do that. We're denying all sorts of opportunity and investments in our community if we cut these programs, if we cut something like LIHTC. And we also then do suffocate the hope that accompanies this investment for the families that will now have this secure, stable housing. I think, with this program being around since the late 80s, it was important to go through very transformational stages. And the latest was when we did the Inflation Reduction Act. When we had done that, we made certain that those tax credits for energy efficiency could be maintained, be coupled with the housing opportunity with LIHTC at no expense to the generous level of LIHTC, so that it was a win-win situation when we did that too. So we're not only providing affordable housing, but energy efficient housing. And that's an assignment to each of us to become more efficient as we build and remodel and reform the housing situation out there. So, Governor, it's an honor to be here with you today to announce this $270 million investment, to know that it will be spread across the map of New York, but will bring a ray of hope to so many people, and that's what this is all about. So government interaction in a way that really provides a strengthener for families and gives them more opportunity. So with that, let me acknowledge now and introduce my senator from the 46th, I was going to say congressional district, state Senate district. Pat has been a friend for a long time, even before you entered the Assembly. Her work with the school board experts in Albany, monumental, and was very passionate as an Assembly member. I watched her work, and it was terrific. And having worked alongside her and alongside the governor, I saw two people who are really engaged and show great compassion and insert a lot of energy into what they believe is essential investment. And that's true of Pat. So proud to introduce my senator. She's moved on from a great career in the State Assembly to now serve in her first term in the New York State Senate, Pat Fahey.
Thank you, Paul Tonko. Thank you, Governor. There is no doubt that there is a fierce need for housing, including affordable housing. The wait lists are stunning. So with that fierce need, I am very grateful that we have an incredibly fierce champion in Governor Hochul, who has not let go of this, despite the couple of hiccups we gave her in the legislature, especially a couple of years ago. She has not let go of the site, love the pro-housing communities initiative that started very small, but has grown exponentially in just a year or 2 years, including with most of my communities. So the need, there is a recognition. We spent difficult years during COVID, very difficult years. And that was not long after the 2010, 2012 recession. We weren't building housing, and it came to a standstill during COVID. So there's a lot of reasons, and we can all give excuses. We focused a lot on some housing supply issues, some of the protections which are needed, but we let go of the housing growth until you came along, Governor, and really began to focus us, push us on this. And now we see we are playing catch up. We do need the federal government to help us there. Thank you, Paul Tonko, who is an amazing champion and just tireless in terms of trying to promote this. But we face difficult days, incredibly difficult days with Washington. So the focus is on the states. We will continue to plea at the federal level, continue to rely on those tax credits and talk about that need, but clearly we can't wait. And I appreciate that you're not waiting, Governor, that we are moving ahead. One of my favorite stats is just a couple of years ago, in New York alone, they estimate that over 1/3 of our residents are spending more than 30% of their income on housing. That's that's a scary number, because that means they're often facing housing instability. When you face housing instability or any form of homelessness, We know that fuels the mental health challenges. It fuels a whole host of health challenges. And again, thank you for your leadership on that, and certainly Congressman Tonko just referred to that. Those issues have not gotten easier. If anything, they've become more challenged since COVID. So when we solve the housing stability and the housing needs in this state, let alone in this country, we help solve family stability. We help solve the mental health, or I like to say mental wellness of those families. And we also know it helps our education levels. You stabilize the family, the kids can focus on the ABCs and not worry about the stress they're seeing in their parents. So it's just a win, win, win. I've been here before for this event here at Station 25. What an amazing investment, and as the congressman mentioned, that we've combined these tax credits with energy efficiency efforts, and it's again a win-win, because we know our health, our climate challenges are not going away. We either keep spending billions of dollars on all these weather-related disasters that we just saw again this week in so many states with tornadoes, or we continue to make these investments. And by the way, it's healthier for the residents here as well. So I couldn't be more pleased. I'm honored to join you, honored to partner with both of you as you continue to champion these efforts. And I hope we're going to continue to cut a lot of ribbons throughout this state. And somebody who knows this better than most, and has also been a longtime champion, and that's Brett Garwood, who is the New York State Association, head of the New York State Association for Affordable Housing. Brett.
Thank you very much. I wanted to thank Conifer for hosting this. I got the opportunity to tour this property when it was under construction. It's great to see the final product, and thanks to the governor for the exciting announcement today. My name is Brett Garwood. I'm chair of the board of the New York State Association for Affordable Housing, NYSAFA. And NYSAFA represents the housing providers and the professionals who create the housing, the affordable housing across New York State that we desperately need. Our primary purpose is to advocate for the creation and preservation of affordable housing, because more housing is exactly what we need to address the housing crisis. I also want to point out that New York State, and I think about this a lot, New York State is in many ways a microcosm of the entire nation when you talk about the bipartisan support for the housing crisis. And these 28 properties are an example of what can happen in every type of community that exists. In our urban communities, our suburban communities, our rural communities, the LIHTC program provides solutions for every type of situation that needs housing. And it's one of the great parts of the low-income housing tax credit program. So I want to thank Governor Hochul for the announcement of the 28 projects. This is a huge step forward in achieving the 5-year housing plan. And as I said, the primary way that we create all this affordable housing is the low-income housing tax credit program. That is why NYSAFA is very much in support of an expansion of that program at the federal level. It is the key ingredient to doing more. And New York State is proposing to double the state low-income housing tax credit. Together, these two resources can allow us to address the housing crisis and do more. And the New York State Association for Affordable Housing's members are definitely ready, willing, and able to build more. We have a giant pipeline among all of our members, and we hope to impact every community across the state. So thank you very much.
Appreciate that. All right.
Thank you. That concludes our program. At this point, we will now move to do a picture with the property owners of Station 25.
minds of most New Yorkers, and so let's talk about how we're going to build more housing. $270 million investment in 28 projects all across the state, resulting in 1,800 units, joined by our Congressman Paul Tonko here, who's also a champion for this in Washington as we work to expand the tax credits available for states from the federal government. And we're doubling our numbers from 15 million to 30 million. And Congressman Tonko is going to work on this bipartisan legislation to increase the federal government's investment in these tax credits that have been very successfully supporting affordable housing since 1986. Any questions on topic?
Rebecca? You'd mentioned that this is part of your 5-year, $25 billion plan. Do you have a rough estimate of how much of the $25 billion, whether through tax credits or other programs, the state has spent on those units so far?
We've built 55,000 units already, so we're ahead of schedule to hit the 100,000. Tanya, I'll ask you to answer the question. You want to come up? Okay, you want to get the number? Okay. We'll get that number of the 25 billion, how much has been spent. We'll get that for you.
And just, I know that there's gonna be a rally happening soon in the Capitol, in favor of the HAVP Housing Access Voucher Program, which doesn't build more housing, but does make it easier for people to access housing. Both houses have included it in their budget. Again, this year you have consistently, not included it. Is that gonna change this year, or why do you remain opposed to that legislation?
No, I'm going to be staying focused on building more supply. That is one of the reasons we got into this situation, because no one had the ambition to build. And so I'm going to be focused on creating more affordable housing, but also the more supply we have, the prices will get down, and that's why we're in a crisis for anyone who's trying to find a home.
Anything else on topic? Yeah, Kate.
Governor, to follow up on that, so I know homelessness is, a new high. So what in the budget will help with that, as much as, building more supply? What about the people who already don't have a place to be?
No, we have multifaceted approach to this. If you talk about homelessness, for example, on the subways or in the city, we are very focused on continuing our SOS program, where we've found and secured homes for about over 800 people now over the last couple of years, which is very dramatic. That's 800 people who found their homes on the subways and in the streets. Right now, we have about 4,000 street homeless individuals, most of them downstate, although there are some in our urban areas upstate. And that is actually a number that we're driving down, but compared to other urban areas, it is dramatically lower. The point being is that there are people who 4,000 people do not have a home to go to at night or choose not to, but the rest are in sheltered situations, which is exactly what we're looking for. So we have money to continue those programs, to literally engage with homeless people, not in a law enforcement manner, but also in a way where we're having teams of people engage with them and try to persuade them to go into the housing. These are social workers, these are people that are housing experts, clinicians. That is the strategy we've taken, because this is a real problem. A lot of it's, more than half the people have mental health problems, and we're dealing with that as part of the budget as well, trying to change our laws related to getting people the compassionate care they deserve, which they're not getting right now. And other ones have substance abuse programs. So it's also about building more housing that is supportive housing to deal with both those problems.
Alex?
I was just going to add, if I could, on the
Of course.
housing issue.
Of course.
With the housing issue, probably the shortfall in housing stock nationwide is around 4 million. And so as we go through these battles with the budget this year, it'll be the leadership like that of Governor Hochul, that should inspire other states to join in the fight. I think we need that push from the state perspective to make certain that we maintain and enhance our efforts in Washington. The light tech investment is an important one. It leverages a lot of private sector dollars. We've seen how it's restored this section of the city, and it's really important. It's important to maintain that effort, but with the leadership here, with the focus that the governor has put on housing, that would inspire, I would hope, other states to do likewise, because we're going to need every push to respond to that 4 million shortfall.
That's right.
Alex?
So we're in sort of a situation of will they, won't they on tariffs with Canada. Obviously, Canada imports a lot of the base resources that we need to build more housing
That's right.
supply in New York and nationwide. Do you have any contingency plans in place for if those tariffs do go into long-term effect?
Well, this has been something I've convened many conversations around. I was in Buffalo the first couple days after it was announced that they were going to really target our largest trading partner, Canada, and knowing that we get so much timber from them, and everybody from our businesses in Buffalo that are part of the supply chain back and forth when, you know, there's vehicles that are built in Canada, but the parts are made in New York. So we know how the synergy that's there, that's now jeopardized, all the way up to the North Country where the supplies of timber comes over readily, and we count on that. So the contingency means that we continue pressing the federal government to realize the damage that this is doing to the people who supported the president. Much of upstate supported the president. This is the people that will be hurt the hardest, especially in the North Country. But also, yes, this is going to hurt our ability to build the volume we want to. If every unit goes up more because the cost of steel, aluminum, and lumber goes up, of course there's going to be a suppressant effect on our ability to build more housing. That is enormously frustrating. So one of the reasons I'm doubling this credit from 15 million to 30 million gives us more play there. And we're going to continue investing in programs. But I, as a state, nor can any state, make up for the damage that is being done by Trump tariffs. I'm not going to pretend we can. People are going to understand very clearly the impact that this is having on their everyday lives. I mean, the average family possibly paying upwards of $2,000 to $3,000 more for everything. And the war is just getting started. I had conversations with the Premier of Ontario about this a couple days ago. I met him in Washington. It's a real shame that we've come to this, that we're at war with a country that we considered a close neighbor, a close ally. And beyond just the supplies, fewer Canadians are coming over. I mean, I was in Manhattan asking what occupancy is like in the hotels, and they said many Canadians are canceling reservations. There, you know, places like theaters in Buffalo are feeling the effect. Again, our border communities are feeling it head on, and that has to be spoken about and covered. And people need to understand what is driving this. It is the Trump tariffs.
Okay, anything else on housing? Jimmy?
Congressman, I guess both of you could answer this. Federal government's in cut mode, it's in reduced funding mode. How are you going to be able to continue with your initiatives in the light of that uncertainty?
I think for me, I've said all along, I can't fix what they're doing to us. I don't have the resource. I cannot make up for $93 billion that we get from the federal government every year. It is not possible. I wanted to sound the alarm day one, like these cuts will have we will be the collateral damage, the roadkill in the way of these policies because there's not a lot we can do about it. I'm not throwing in the towel. I'm just saying, realistically, how do I make up that money? It is not possible. So we stand up, we fight, we challenge, we go to court. When they withhold money, we see you in court. Sometimes it's successful, sometimes it's not. That is our strategy right now. But also, as I've said, the world can change in a better direction in 2026, which is not that far off. You know, we put Paul Tonko in the majority, all of a sudden there's checks and balance, and the slide stops. And that's what I'm focused on beyond just trying to figure out the damage control to protect our state.
Yeah, in terms of a response, Jimmy, I think that, you know, housing as a crisis doesn't know boundaries. So there are Republican-led communities that are suffering just as Democratic-led communities are with the housing initiatives and the need to invest in housing. So I would hope that the successes out there, like the one we're celebrating today, will be storytelling for all of us, that you build the people's response here and the pressure on all of us to move forward. Look, the president campaigned on reducing costs, and all he's doing is increasing costs. So promises kept cannot be promises broken. And we need to remind the administration of this. When you're going to add to the price of lumber and steel, you're going to definitely put a dent into the opportunities, how far you can stretch that dollar.
Right.
And you fight so hard for tax credits, you fight so hard for investments to respond to that 4 million shortfall. And we shouldn't have a man-made, government or president-made initiative here that is going to cause yet another layer of crisis. So this is going to be impacting the consumers, and we are going to use that as a pitch at the table, at the budget table, certainly at the appropriate committee table. I'm on the budget committee in the House. We're going to raise these issues and talk about these successes and encourage our counterparts to do the same and challenge them. If they don't want to talk about it, challenge them because they're realizing some of these tax credits across the country.
Great.
Any
All right.
other time?
I think we're good with, on topics. Thank you, Congressman Tonko.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, everybody.
And then Governor Tanya.
Thank you, thank you. All right,
All right, let's have some.
I think they hit their quota already, my gosh.
Well, just kind of transitioning from that about federal cuts, your counterparts in the legislature have proposed increases in income taxes and corporate taxes. Given the uncertainty, given the fact that there could be cuts coming from the federal government, should you think about additional revenue-raising measures at this time?
I also have to think about affordability.
For people making $5 million a year is what's on the
I
table.
am focused on making sure that we do not drive away the individuals who are basically funding our budget. Okay, we've already seen the effects of that. There was an out-migration of high net worth people that began in 2017 when the first elimination of the state and local tax deduction occurred. It was very challenging. The migration continued when people decided not to live in the city, which was the epicenter of the pandemic. People left the city at that time. I need these revenues dramatically, and I don't want to put up policies in place that'll make anyone else decide that they want to leave the state for lower taxes. I'm proposing a middle-class tax cut, the largest tax rate cut in 70 years. I'm focused on affordability. That is what I have to do. We'll work with the legislature on funding, but I have said I'm not raising income taxes because I will cut income taxes instead. That's how I'm going to keep people here.
Rebecca?
Governor, how did your meeting with President Trump go last week? What did you discuss? Are you open to revisiting the Constitution pipeline? What can you tell us about that conversation?
No, he certainly had that on his mind, but I was talking about congestion pricing multiple times and made the case about all the data, the perception that it is hurting the city. I challenged. I said ridership is up 10%. People are still coming in. The sidewalks are packed. Broadway sales are up 21%. Retail sales are up $900 million. So the concern about people not walking in and hurting the little local stores, I was concerned about, but it's not playing out. And it's hard to find someone who does not describe how liberating it is to have a faster commute in. People that were naysayers before. I'm not saying it's 100% loved yet, but we've won over a lot of people when they've seen, oh, I just shaved off 20 minutes, I shaved off 30 minutes. It's astounding the effect it's had. So I spent a lot of time, multiple times, going over the benefits, showing more data and all that. Certainly he has his objectives of finding more energy reserves. I talked about my desire to have the offshore wind industry back online on Long Island because we invested a lot of money, thousands of jobs, people I said that supported you on Long Island, union members who trained for these jobs at our great training centers, our apprenticeship programs. So we talked about energy, I talked about nuclear. I said, I need an all-the-above approach that's going to work. We talked about hydro, we talked about wind onshore as well, but I talked about how I'd like to have small modular reactors that are very safe. We're not talking about the large-scale ones that people think of from the past. I announced this back in November. I said a lot of it has to do with the delays that occur at the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. So I talked about maybe you could look at that as an area to streamline efforts there to help us be able to have the power necessary for our innovation economy, particularly upstate. So we had a lot of conversations about that, and then I came back again to congestion pricing a couple more times. We certainly had a long conversation.
Any headway on any of those issues?
I don't know the answer to that question, but I said the cameras are staying on Friday. I said the cameras are staying on.
Chantel?
Governor, what is your current mind frame as you approach budget negotiations with legislative leaders? And do you have any non-negotiables or hardliners on policy items in the budget this year?
We're having a lot of robust conversations, important conversations. We started yesterday, we'll carry on today. I think we're on a path to have really regularly scheduled meetings with the leaders. It is very respectful. There's a lot of listening, and this is not the first time I've sat down with the leaders since last year. We've been having ongoing dialogue, so I've been able to share my priorities, and my budget is the blueprint. I laid out my highest priorities and what I want to get accomplished. So they know that. Certainly the one houses give them their option to put forth some of their ideas and priorities. That's part of the process. But I feel like we're going to have a very productive session.
All right, one more in the back.
Governor, any lessening of the restrictions for fire and COs that work at the county level? And do you think that Schumer should resign, or do you support his stance regarding the budget?
I'm not calling on anyone to resign. You've never heard me do that. It would not be appropriate. Senator Schumer has delivered time and time again for New York State. We have been very fortunate to have a position in that extremely powerful position to be able to deliver, whether it's the Gateway Tunnel, the bipartisan gun legislation, CHIPS. I mean, Micron has his name on it as well. And so I don't want to lose that clout. I think he's been delivering for New York in impactful ways. People can disagree on different strategies, and I guarantee there'll be many more times that there's not a unanimous view on a policy, how to deal with the Trump administration. That's fair. That's fair game to have that kind of dialogue and disagreement. That's fair game. But he has been incredibly important to the state of New York. What's the other part of your question?
Any lessening of the restrictions for the fired correction officers that want to work at the county level, not at the state level?
Well, they're only in effect till April 9th, those restrictions. Now, the process is that when anyone is fired for cause, anyone, this could be a DEC police officer, they're fired for cause, the process begins to remove your police officer status, which allows you to secure your gun. That can be renewed, and if these people want to go work for local law enforcement, certainly that's their prerogative. But I just want to remind everybody, I'd be very cautious because these individuals had a responsibility to protect the public and the incarcerated population, and they walked off the job for 22 days, many of them. And that is something that's very hard to get over, to comprehend the danger that they left people in, unguarded, the workers from other unions, CSEA and PEF who were left there in that situation, the incarcerated population without anyone for oversight to stop any conflicts there, or there could have been an escape. The communities at large could have been in danger. That's what we had to deal with for 22 days. And to say that we're going to, forget, I will never forget that. They're not ever working for the state of New York.
Can you talk a little bit about...
Where do you and President Trump agree? We've heard a lot of where your areas of disagreement are. I'm curious, what common ground have you found, especially on transit?
We are doing Penn Station.
Penn Station, any details?
No, I'm supposed to show them the plans. That'll be my next trip down.
Can you talk about involuntary...
I'm excited about that. We have $1.2 billion committed. I said about $6 billion from the federal government would be enormously helpful. Little wince there, but I won't take that as a no. So no, we talked about, I talked about the Second Avenue subway. I kind of circled back to the projects I want to fund with congestion pricing, like the Second Avenue subway, and I got onto another number of projects. So I think that's going to be an area of common interest. Again, this is where having the president be a New Yorker, someone who understands how critical the infrastructure is to just the functions of our city was good.
On Penn Station, we were talking about Penn Station in Puerto Rico, that far back. How far has that moved?
Oh, it's moving.
How has that moved?
It's moving. It's moving.
In the federal commitment towards funding?
Well, the challenge has been that Amtrak had a different vision. I want to redo the station. I want it to be magnificent. And if you go to the station, there are major parts that have been redone already. They really have. It's beautiful. But there's parts that still are behind, and I want to bring in the natural light. We have a great plan. So I get updates literally every week on our progress because I'm impatient, but we had to get everybody really heading down the same tracks here, and that was hard because Amtrak was rather insistent that it be this larger 780 block, and I said I'm not going to destroy this neighborhood. We can do the station itself, make it something that we're proud of, without having to destroy a neighborhood in the process, because I don't think the demand is there for office that was once there, and I'm not going to destroy a neighborhood in the process. So I had to shift a narrative and a focus that was heading down one way, pull them back and say, this is how we're going to do it. So I'm excited about this.
Can you talk about involuntary...
keeping the conversation going, Penn Station in particular. Is that a fair way to frame that?
Right, what is what?
Is it fair to say that the talks over Penn Station are keeping your broader conversations about transit with the president ongoing? Is that a fair way to characterize that?
Yes. Yeah, I think there's a lot of common interest there. Let's get it done.
Can you talk about just involuntary commitment? The state Senate wants to, they didn't quite agree in their one house on the standard used to commit someone. How committed are you to putting your proposal in the budget, and also the elections bill? Do you have any sense on if that's going to be revived anytime soon?
I don't know that answer, but on the first one, it's already in my budget. My definition of how we need to be in line with 43 other states. 43 other states have the definition or something comparable to what we're talking about, that it's not just individuals where you can determine are in imminent harm of themselves or imminent likelihood of doing harm to another. That's the standard we have now. Most other states look at the broader impacts of someone who's literally lying on the street, not able to take their medication, not able to feed themselves, not able to clothe themselves. And I, as a human being, cannot leave them there. I cannot do that. This is, to think that that's been a policy, I will always stand up for people's individual rights. I'm a civil libertarian, that's great. But when I have someone who lacks the mental capacity to make decisions around their own well-being, then all I'm saying is, like, let's get them in, evaluated by 2 professionals, that's the requirement, and see whether they stay for 72 hours and become stabilized. And if the determination is made for maybe 15 days, let's get them help. We have capacity. Now, what I'll also say is that when I first became governor, there had not been sufficient investments in mental health. We now have put $2 billion into building the housing and the SOS programs and making sure that when someone's discharged from a hospital, that there absolutely is a path of treatment going forward. We put that in the law last year. That's the case now. But I now have, I'm at 85% capacity for mental health beds. We had a severe shortage when I became governor. You know, I went after a lot of hospitals and said, you have to open these up. We had to find some of them. And now I've got capacity now to take in the people. And we're talking about a fairly small number. I'm not talking about thousands of people that are going to need this care. We have the capacity to take care of them now, which was so important. So we're at a place now, this now makes sense because I had to do the groundwork to get us here over the last 3 years. So I feel this is an important priority.
What was
Thanks,
your
everybody.
what was your lunch with Mike Lawler like?
So you're gonna fund the HALT Act in the budget and actually, so it can be implemented, so it'll be safer in prisons?
We are redoing our prison system. I'm excited about this. We're making a lot of changes. The corrections officers, as we spoke to them, raised some issues. That's, for example, drugs were getting in letters from legal entities. So now we're going to bring on a separate contractor to literally look at this, not read the mail, but if there's something that's illegal, send it back. So we've actually made some reforms. The HALT Act, what people don't realize about the HALT Act, 1/2 of the HALT Act is about saying that you're required to have 4 hours a day of programming time, whether it's learning a trade, whether it's educational. That's the other half of the HALT Act that people aren't realizing. That has unfortunately been suspended because I'm now down not just the original 2,000 corrections officers, but we have an additional 2,000. So I'm going to keep the National Guard there for a little while, but I want to rethink our system. And we have gotten credit for a lot of our innovative programs within our prisons. It's important to me that that people have an opportunity while they are there to emerge from this incarceration with more skills or as an individual who's less likely to commit crimes again. It's all about stopping recidivism, so I'm committed to making those reforms.
Great.
Thanks.
What was your lunch with Mike Lawler like?